Okay, so first, just a little reminder about the course themes that we saw last time. So if you missed the class and you know that I'm posting the recordings online, I'm posting also the annotated slides online. So you can follow even if you missed the class. Now I strongly advise to try to attend all your classes, but sometimes you cannot attend. So you can watch the recording afterwards. So last time we were talking about the course themes. So we had an introduction to all of those three themes, right? Structure, function. So what was that theme about? Maybe I can ask someone wants to summarize in 1 or 2 sentences. And I also encourage always a new person to talk. So I don't pick you, but I'll let you volunteer.
I wasn't there, but I can take a guess.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's the structures of the cell and their functions within the cell, or just structures and their function within certain.
And how are the structures and functions related?
Yes, that's what I mean.
Yeah, okay. So the structures, we often say structure determines function, because if you look at a certain structure, it could be a cell, or it could be at any other level of organization. We'll discuss those today. Could be an enzyme, like a protein that has a certain shape. The shape will determine the function. What about homeostasis? What was that about? So someone else maybe wants to volunteer to yeah.
I can try. It's
Yeah,
the
please.
process of trying to achieve a balance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. Exactly. That's balance, right? And also, if you can, if you can just tell your name when you speak, that's great, because I don't. Tyler. Okay, that's great. And others will know also. We'll learn to know each other a bit more. Exactly, that's balance, and it's a dynamic equilibrium. Also, we could say, right? Where it's not static. It's always in flux, but we're trying to maintain a certain balance. For example, we saw last time we're trying to maintain approximately a constant body temperature, as humans, for example. What about well, evolutionary adaptations? I think it's kind of straightforward, right? It's adaptations. Now, yeah, well, I don't know. Someone wants to add something about that. But basically, it is the changes, right? And you know what evolution is, the changes in a population. So it's the changes in a population that allow that population to adapt. So these are going to be our course themes. And what we mean by that is that they're always coming back. They're always present in any topic we discuss. Those elements, you keep them in the back of your mind. They're there. The course topics. So here's a list of the course topics. So you can have a look at the course outline, which is posted online. I believe it's been posted. If not, then I will do that afterwards. But I'm not going to go over all the topics for all the weeks, but just to see here that this week what we're doing is we're reviewing the themes in biology and introducing what we're going to do gradually. Next week we will meet, I think at least, I think we'll meet both on Wednesday and Friday. And it will be, to some extent, some review of organic molecules, which you have seen last year, if you took GB1, and also cell structures and functions. So that's kind of a review, but we will probably add a little bit of new information that you haven't seen that will be useful in this semester. Starting in the following weeks, we're going to have a mix of actually, already starting next week, we'll have a mix of pre-recordings and also some in synchronous, so synchronous and asynchronous theory information. Okay, so either as a capsule, video capsule, or reading, or directly in class like we're doing today. And well, general course goal, that's something I told you last time. It's just keep in mind what you're trying to do. Yes, you're gaining knowledge, you're learning about specific topics, specific processes. But overall, in the very long term, what your goal is to build your brain, the way your brain or your nervous system functions, so that you start or continue or build up your thinking as a biologist. Okay, so that you think like a biologist. So it's a little bit abstract, but hopefully, that's what you're going to do over time. Okay, so now I have a first activity for us to try to do. So here we picked various images of different structures in that, some of them will be of interest to us this semester. And I'd like us to identify the level of organization associated with each of those structures. And if we know which structure specifically it is, then that's even better. So I'd like to do that as a group, and so ask a different person to answer every time. And if you can write on the sheet, you can. It would be nice so that to increase participation, so you can annotate. So some of you, we've tried that last time. If not, that's okay. I can write it down also on the slide. And for those who have chosen to print the slides, you can also, there's a list here which you can fill, or you can fill it afterwards also, because I will, I will post, those slides are posted, so you can fill it later on. So let's start with A. So I'd like, as much as possible, a new student every time to answer, and I need volunteers. So someone would volunteer to be our first.
It's called a chloroplast.
Okay, so you say it's a chloroplast. Very good. And do you know what the chloroplast does? Oh, we don't hear you.
Absorb the sunshine and translate it to carbohydrate. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, so it takes the sun energy and makes carbohydrates. And what level of organization would that correspond to? Do you remember the levels of organization? It's like the structures of different sizes.
Sorry, I can't remember.
No? Okay, no problem. Anyone would remember?
Would it be an organelle?
Yes, exactly. Fantastic. Organelle. Thank you so much. Okay, good. All right, we've got our first. What about this one, number B? Someone else? So I see, so Sawyer, you raise your hand, so you want to answer?
No, it's just a question.
Okay.
Isn't the chloroplast also like a cellular organism, because it was added to the cell through symbiosis?
Yeah, that's, it's no longer an organism because it's found inside another organism, but its origin, yeah. So the origin of the chloroplast, it comes from another organism. And you can see here a little piece of genetic material that also kind of gives you a hint about that. Yeah, we'll mention that again next week to clarify. But yeah, that's true. Okay, B. So someone I'd rather not pick people and have them volunteer.
Would that be an amino acid?
This one? No, but you're relatively close. It's a little bigger than an amino acid. So if you know, or if someone else knows, or think they know, it's a little tricky, perhaps.
Is it DNA?
It's not DNA, but it's
RNA?
It's not RNA, so another try.
Is it a protein?
It's a protein, yeah. So these structures you might have not seen yet, but these structures, so here, for example, you have what we call an alpha helix, These are part of the protein. So we often represent proteins that way. So whenever you see an image that looks like this, most likely it's a protein. There might be some RNA sometimes or associated with that. For example, ribosomes have proteins and RNA, but most of the time we have a protein made up of a chain of amino acids, right? So in this case, it's a protein. I'll tell you which protein it is because you probably will not know. It's called cytochrome C. And at this point, it doesn't matter, but we will discuss this. It's an enzyme. We'll discuss it later on. Okay. So what level of organization would that be?
I believe it would be a molecule.
Yeah.
I think this level of organization is also classified as non-living.
Yeah, that's it. It's non-living. Yeah, that's correct. It's part of the living organism, but itself, it's non-living. It's a molecule, and you could also say it's a macromolecule. We have those categories of big molecules. We like to kind of order them that way, saying, okay, these big molecules, they're in the category of macromolecules, but they're just big molecules. Very good. Okay, what about the next C here? What do you think that represents? So someone in the chat is proper. Okay, so someone said, Sasha said, ecosystem or community. Okay, very good. So how would you distinguish if it's an ecosystem or a community? Or what's the difference between the two? Okay, I think.
I'm not sure, but like, is a community like just the animals and the ecosystem everything?
Yes, exactly. And I got the answer also in the chat. The community is the living organisms, okay, or biotic, right? Living organisms. And if it was the ecosystem, we would consider also the non-living elements. So here, while the picture indeed could be either, I chose a picture that had like looks mostly like these are organisms. So I thought that's community, but if we consider there's some soil in there, there's some air, the wind is blowing, there's probably some, well, we don't see any water there, but basically it could be an ecosystem as well. This would be biotic and abiotic elements. Okay. Yeah. Okay, what about D?
It's an organ.
Okay, it's an organ. And would you know which organ it might be?
The nervous system.
Okay.
Or I guess the system.
Yeah, so it's an organ system. Very good. It's an organ system or a system which contains several organs, right? So you can see those organs like the brain, spinal cord, and the nerves. These are the what we would call the organs of the nervous system. Very good. Okay, what about E?
It would be a community.
Okay, so you say community now. If you say community, that means there's more than one species in there.
Would it be a population?
Yeah, we chose that image so that it looks like everyone is the same species here, all humans. So yeah, that looks mostly like a population. Very crowded. So that's before Corona, right? Obviously. Now F.
Okay. Is it just an organism?
Yeah, organism. That's it. An organism. In this case, it's a geranium. Okay, G.
A molecule.
Yeah, it's a molecule. And would you know which molecule it is? Maybe you've done some of those models.
Is it CO2?
Yeah, CO2. Very good. Fantastic. Okay. What about H? So now I don't know who's answering. I'm hoping it's a new person every time. But that's if so, that's great. What about H? What does that look like?
A cell?
Okay, you've got actually many cells in there.
Is it like the back of an eyeball or something?
Might look like that. It's actually from a plant. And I've got an answer in the chat here. So group of cells. And how do we call a group of cells?
Is it a tissue?
It's a tissue. Very good. So it's a plant tissue in this case. So we'll discuss plants this semester. So we thought it could be good to show you tissue yet. Okay, what about eye?
It's an atom.
It's not an atom. No, it's bigger than
Never
an
mind. I
atom.
was sorry. I was seeing K.
Yeah. It's a little tricky. You might not know. You probably don't know. So I can tell you it's an organelle. And anyone would like to guess what organelle that is?
Is it a mitochondria?
Yes, exactly. The mitochondria. Fantastic. Okay, so we're good so far. So we're going to talk about the mitochondria, this semester. So it's nice to see those images already once in the beginning. So whenever you see it again, then you'll remember. So Jay, I've got an answer that someone said it's an organ. I got that in the chat. Would everyone agree with that?
Yep.
Yeah. What organ is that?
Heart.
The heart. Yeah. So we were supposed to have a heart dissection this semester, but probably it's going to be a virtual one. What about K?
Wow. This one's an atom.
Okay, this is an atom. Very good. And would you know which atom it is?
Is it carbon?
Yes, it's carbon. And how did you find out?
6 electrons.
Okay.
But I was guessing about the number. I couldn't remember if carbon was 6 or 5. So I guessed carbon since living.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah. So we're going to talk about carbon this semester. It has 6 electrons and 6 protons, obviously. What about L?
It's a cell.
A cell. Fantastic. And will you know what type of cell that is?
Plant.
Plant cell. Very good. Okay, so you probably have seen several of those images before, so good. What about L?
A neuron?
It's a neuron. And what level of organization is that?
I don't know.
It's another cell.
It's a cell. Yeah. Okay. What about M? Yeah,
Boris, L is there twice.
Swamp.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess we're lucky that it's twice a cell, but yeah, okay. Good point. So that's RS. Okay, M. Yeah, I've got an answer in the chat. Ecosystem. Very good. And here, we tried to show there's some water in there, so that corresponds a bit more to an ecosystem. What about N? So this is maybe a bit new to you.
Is it an organelle?
We will not consider this to be an organelle. If I can help you a bit, this would... Sorry?
Then tooth.
So I didn't hear. Was it? Did you see what the? Someone said DNA.
It's tooth.
Okay. If you look at this image, it's similar to this thing.
The protein.
Protein. Very good. It's a protein. Okay. In this case, it's a kind of a channel that allows passage of substances in or out of the cell. Okay. So we're going to discuss that also. Movement across the cell membrane, we'll discuss. Okay. O.
So it's a protein, so it's a molecule? Is that the...
Oh, sorry.
level?
Yeah, it's a molecule. You could say molecule, or you could also say, to even more specifically, a macromolecule. Yeah. What about O? For someone? Okay, nucleic acid. Okay. Well, it's not a nucleic acid. It's a molecule, so we're good with that. It's going to be tricky here. But some of you might know, maybe you've seen that in high school, there's 3 phosphates here.
Is it a lipid?
No.
No. I don't remember. I
No.
recognize it from the first
So-
one, but I don't remember.
Yeah, it's a modified nitrogenous base, so that's correct. Very good. So you see also this base here. Okay. Now, I'll write here P, and this is adenine, so it's A. So there's just one letter missing in between.
It's
ATP.
ATP. T is for tri, so that's three phosphates. So it's ATP. Very good. So we will be discussing ATP and energy in this semester. Okay, we've got just a few more. What about P?
Glucose.
Very good, glucose. Okay, so maybe you had seen, did you see that in chemistry?
I remembered it. Yeah, I think
Okay.
so.
Or perhaps in general biology 1. Okay, PQ.
Earth.
Yeah, so that's obvious. That's we're going to say that's the biosphere, right? The Earth. And R.
Skin. Wall.
So-
Skin.
The whole thing. Can you say? Sorry.
Skin is a cell.
Cell
wall?
cell membrane.
Cell membrane. Okay.
Yeah, cell membrane. So we can think, if we want, of the cell membrane as an organelle, right? So some would say it's an organelle, others would dispute that perhaps, but it's kind of the appropriate level, and it's a structure of the cell that performs a certain function. It's the structure that keeps the cell, as one. So very good. So cell membrane with the bilayer, phospholipid bilayer, I saw somewhere mentioned, and we've got a bunch of proteins in there as well. Okay, so that gives us an introduction to the levels of organization and also to several of those structures that we'll be discussing this semester. So hopefully that's useful. And well, you can fill that now or later on probably. And you can also try to organize the levels from large to small. We will not do that now just because of time constraints. But I will show you, we have the 2 images here showing the order of all the levels, right? So from large to small. So if you want later on, you could try to remember, right? You could try after the class, go on and tell someone, call a friend, or just tell your cat the levels of organization from large to small or small to large to see if you remember them all. So we've got a biosphere, which is the largest one, ecosystem, then community, right? Because ecosystem contains the community plus other things. So it's always like that. The higher level contains the smaller level. Community contains several populations, and each population is made of several organisms, right? And then when we go down to smaller and smaller levels, organism made of several systems, and each system is made of several organs. Each organ, again, made of several tissues, and so on. Each tissue made of many cells. Then organelle, molecule, and atom, right? So for example, a molecule is made of 2 or more atoms. Okay, so this is something we had seen last semester. Now I'd like us to try a little activity again, you in groups. So I'll give you just 5 minutes in groups of about 5 people to try to identify any of the levels of organization you choose that would be disturbed or affected by this situation. So here we're applying some pesticides, and unfortunately it causes some problems to the shells of the eggs of some animals, and it causes some other problems as well, but that's just a part of it. And how would that affect the whole, any of the levels of organization? Okay, so we're going to try that in breakout groups. I'll just give you 5 minutes to do that. I'll visit the rooms maybe once. I'll put 5 or 6 people per room, so there's enough people to interact. Make sure everyone gets a chance to talk as well, okay? And you have if you want to fill that in after, you have a sheet here as well for those who printed theirs. Okay, so let's try that. You should already be able to join, I think. Yeah. And I'll visit the rooms one after the next. Okay. Okay. And all right, so what would one group like to share their idea as to how the different levels of organizations will be affected? So go ahead, someone.
I feel like with the eggs not being able to, like, not having strong eggshells, it could minimize the population and it could really affect the community, because on a community level, because maybe the main prey of the bird, like some sort of insect, would be an invasive species if it were not for the bird.
Okay, so it would increase in numbers. The insect species would increase in numbers because they don't have predators.
Yeah.
Okay, very good, very good. Anything else from this group? Or
my group also talked about how it could negatively affect the organ level as well.
Okay, and how so?
I guess you can cause mutations or possibly organ failure as well.
Okay, okay. So we don't know so much about birds or reptiles, but we understand that it's important for them to process calcium properly, and now this is disrupted. So certainly it will have effects at the organ level. Very good. Sawyer, you raise your hand. You want to say something?
It could. Oh gosh. Because there's less birds, because their eggs are failing more. It could lead to them spreading less of a seed, which could affect the ecosystem. Because if there's less of a plant, the entire nutrients of the ground could be thrown off.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, very interesting. So we already got the community level, the ecosystem, the organ level. Fantastic. Is there just one or two other groups that would like to provide a different answer?
Well, us, it's basically one level higher, but I guess it's still community. Even the predators of the birds themselves will have issues, because if they mostly feed on birds and the birds reproduce less, then the predators themselves will starve.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Very good. Yeah, that's true. So you see, at the level of the community, all the species or all the populations are interacting, so they're interdependent, really. Okay, good. Is there anyone else would like to comment before we move on?
If you take it down to the molecule level, that's where the initial change happened. So there's definitely something there.
Okay. Yeah, very good.
All the rest, right?
Yeah, certainly the molecule itself will interact with other molecules. There will be various chemical reactions taking place due to that additional molecule entering the cells and so on. Yeah, fantastic. So then we've got, so Isaac, you started at the molecular level, and we've got some groups that ended at the ecosystem level, and I guess we could go to the biosphere level eventually. Everything is interrelated in biology, right? So if you want to think like a biologist, that's one thing you'll think about, right? Everything is interconnected. And the other thing you would like to think as a biologist is that we humans are part of all those interconnections, right? So I heard one group saying, oh, would humans be affected? I mean, we could discuss that further, but in very general terms, we're all interrelated and we're part of nature, right? So in some ways, we will be affected, that's for sure. All right. So hopefully that makes sense, the idea of levels of organization and interdependence. So that's something we wanted to kind of refresh our ideas about. So we've got just a few more minutes. So I'd like to ask you another question. So here we're going to talk about cells this semester. And in particular, we're going to talk about what goes on inside those cells. You know that we typically think of cells as being basic units of life. Why do we say that they're basic units of life? Anyone has an idea? And something was mentioned a little bit before today that kind of refers to that. So it's perhaps a vague question, but the idea is that, well, cells are the smallest unit, smallest living structures, right? So we consider life begins at the level of the cell. You know, that can be debated, but certainly all organisms are all species, you know, all organisms and the populations and so on. It starts at the cell, right? Any organism is made of one or more cells. We have two types of cells, prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells. So this you probably remember from last semester. So I'd like to do a little poll here. And actually, before I do that, let me show you here. You remember your cheek cells from last year?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So if you look at the cheek cells, well, the cheek cells are here, right? So these are eukaryotic cells. So you kind of get an idea of their size. And what's the structure in the middle here, or not in the middle, but somewhere here inside
The nucleus.
The nucleus, right? So the cells, these cells have organelles. And if you look at the little dots on the outside surface of the cells, these are prokaryotic cells. These are bacteria. So it gives you an idea of the difference in size between the two, right? So I thought that could be interesting to compare those two on one slide. Now, my question is whether the different themes that we are discussing apply to prokaryotic cells, like are they affected or associated or affected by that theme, and whether eukaryotic cells are also affected. And same thing about the features here. So do prokaryotic cells have each of those features, and do eukaryotic cells have them? So I have a little poll for you to complete. So I think we'll just take 1 minute to do that. And I'll launch the poll. So you can choose one or more answers. So do you see the poll? You can answer. I see nobody has answered yet. You see it? Is it showing up?
Yeah, it's showing up.
Okay. Oh, I see, because you have to answer all questions, so it takes a while. Yeah, so I'll give you 1 minute to do that. So I'll wait until at least half of the group has answered. It doesn't matter if you get it wrong. Okay, just another 10, 15 seconds more. It's really curious to see what the answers are. Okay, So if you're not done, then most people have answered. So we're going to have a look here. So looking at the teams, do structure function apply to prokaryotic cells? So 83% said yes. And I would agree with that, right? So yes, indeed, structure function is applicable at the level of prokaryotes. Homeostasis regulation. Do prokaryotic cells need to balance their internal environment? So here only half of the people answered yes, but the correct answer is yes. Yes, of course. It's a cell, so it needs to be in balance, even if it's just one cell. Evolution, does it apply to prokaryotes? So 70% said yes, but the answer is yes. Eukaryotes, so it looks like people said also, more than 80% thought eukaryotes, it applies to eukaryotes. Those teams apply to any living organism, right? So they would apply to both prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Now, looking at the features of prokaryotes, so genetic material, do they have genetic material? Yes, they're living organisms, they have genetic material. Do they do protein synthesis? So is there protein synthesis inside the prokaryotes? Yes. Chemical reactions? Yes. Right? Response to the environment? Yes. Cell division? Yes. Organelles. So here 30% said yes. The answer is no, at least not the way we define organelles. Okay. Unicellular organisms? Yes. And multicellular organisms? No. Okay, so we see we get prokaryotes have all those features, but they're missing a few. Eukaryotes, genetic material, yes. Protein synthesis, yes. So here people answered more higher percentages. So all of those features are applicable to eukaryotes as well. Eukaryotes have organelles. Are there any unicellular eukaryotes? So only 15% said yes, but some eukaryotes are unicellular. Multicellular eukaryotes, let me see the answers. 88%, yes, some eukaryotes are multicellular, okay? So, I've got some answers in the chat. Can prokaryotic cells be multicellular technically because of our gut microbiome? We have prokaryotic cells inside our body, but when we say unicellular or multicellular, it means that if you're unicellular, you can survive on your own. And if you are multicellular, if you remove one cell from the group, the cell will not survive, okay? So in this case, these are still unicellular organisms inside the gut. You could remove them and grow them on a plate and they will grow, okay? So in prokaryotes, there's sometimes a tail to add in movement. Well, yeah, in such case, maybe you could consider this to be an organelle. Keep in mind that these are definitions that we make, right? We define saying, okay, these are organelles and these are not organelles. The cell doesn't mind, right? Doesn't care about that. So I guess I can put that in parentheses if you consider flagella could be an organelle. That, that could be debatable. But the point is that if you look also on that image, prokaryotes are much smaller than eukaryotes, and so they have much less complex structures inside. Okay, and if we think about what we're going to look at in this course, prokaryotes are extremely interesting, but we're going to focus on eukaryotes in this course. Okay, and we're also going to focus mostly on multicellular organisms, and in particular, plants and animals. Okay, so in the second part after the March break, we'll focus more on plants and animals. And we'll just have time to finish here to situate ourselves in terms of the different groups of organisms. So if we talk about prokaryotes, this is a tree of life showing the historical or evolutionary relationships between the different groups of organisms. So the bacteria and archaea are prokaryotes. Okay, so they are unique cells, unicellular. Sometimes they can interact with other cells, but if you remove them, they can still survive on their own. So they're unicellular. And they're much smaller and much less complex than eukaryotes. Eukaryotes, those branches here, So some of those branches have mostly unicellular or only unicellular organisms. Now I'd have to verify which of those groups. So there might be once in a while one species that is more that is multicellular in those groups. But for the most part, the multicellular organisms, for the most part, it's the animals, the plants, and some fungi. Okay, so some fungi are also multicellular, but not all of them. But all animals and all plants are multicellular. All right. So that kind of positions all the different groups of organisms. And that's pretty much everything we'll have time to do today. But hopefully that was a good introduction. So what we're going to do next time is to finish those slides that you have here. So next Wednesday, and we're also going to discuss a little bit the organic molecules. Okay, so probably is going to last maybe up to the 2 hours. It's possible, but in any case, we'll send you a message, a MIO, next Monday to give you an overview of what we'll be doing during the week. So we'll try to give you a message at the beginning of each week, so you know what to expect. All right, is that good? All right. Okay, so I think we're done with that. So well, I see that some of you are still here. In any case, I'll wish you a great weekend. I will stay in. If someone wants to talk to me afterwards, that's fine. Otherwise, you're free to go.
Have a great weekend.
Yeah,
Bye, Boris.
Weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks.